Welcome. I'll say Bruchim Habaim. What a joy to gather on this most spectacular fall day and contemplate the possibility of overseas travel anywhere, but especially to this most beloved place for us. We are going to be joined at about 12:15 by the COO of the tour company that we're planning to work with. Her name is Kim Passy Yosef. She'll be tuning in from Israel. And we'll ask her to walk us through the itinerary that's been proposed, and very exciting, I think you'll find as well. I wanted to start this morning, or I guess this afternoon already, just with a little bit of commentary about a trip to Israel, any trip to Israel. Our congregation has a long history of communal visits to the land of Israel, to the state of Israel. We've been on a rhythm of going more or less every 4 years for most of our history as a community. The last trip we took was in the summer of 2016. So by the time this trip comes up, it'll be 6 years. And of course, that is due in part to the pandemic reality we've been living under you don't need me to tell you, for the last almost 2 years. So it's really a thrill to be at a place where it seems that the pandemic restrictions, at least right now, are such that it is possible for us to make this trip. I will be honest and say, when I first proposed it in several months ago, we all of us here in the office thought, how are we ever going to pull off a trip like this? But in fact, the combination of Israeli ingenuity and pandemic, God willing, easing, I think is going to make it possible for us. I feel very optimistic and excited. I think it's important as we begin to look at an itinerary together to just highlight the relationship that we have with the land of Israel. And I'd like to start with an extremely informal survey. If you're comfortable to just raise your hand, I'm going to scroll through the 2 screens of people that are here. For how many people would this be a first-time visit to Israel? I'm just curious to see. And hold your hand up if you don't mind so I can see. Great. Wonderful. Got it. Okay, great. Thank you. And how many of you have been, let's say, more than 3 times? Raise your hand. I just want to see the combination of folks that are here. Great. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm guessing that there are some in this call right now in our Zoom room who have been many times. And it's wonderful to travel with a diverse group, with people who are experiencing this visit for the first time and those who are coming back for return visits. I think this will be my 6th or 7th visit, and I have to say each time it feels miraculous to me. Each time it feels like a new place. If you haven't been for several years, I think you'll be amazed to see even just the changes in infrastructure over the last several years, not to mention the evolving cultural and certainly political situation. We have had a long-standing relationship with a tour operator who has served us marvelously well for years. We are going to work with a different tour operator this time, and that is specifically because I feel that the relationship we have with Israel has been evolving and changing, and I wanted us to have an experience visiting there that reflected that evolving relationship. This tour company is called Mejdi. You may have seen, I put a link to their website in the information about this call. And I think that when Kim comes on to the call with us, she may be able to share more. But their whole premise is based on experiencing 2 narratives, or really multiple narratives, of the story of this place that we call Israel, that some refer to as Palestine, that some are now referring to as Israel-Palestine. So Mejdi is a company that was founded by a Palestinian Israeli and a Jewish Israeli together. And it's based on the premise of inviting not only visitors from outside of Israel, but even Israelis themselves to get to know the history and the landscape and the culture in a somewhat wider angle view than a more typical Jewish trip from the past, at least, including the company that we have worked with for many years. I want to reassure you that there is extreme care given to any security concerns. So we don't have to worry about, we're not putting ourselves in harm's way by approaching Israel in this way. But we are giving ourselves an opportunity to get to know the fuller story of how the miraculous and complicated country that is there today came to be, and how it is continuing to find its way forward to embody its potential. So Kim Passy Yosef has come into our waiting room. I'm going to welcome her in right now. And should see her on screen in just a second. Kim, are you? Oh, yeah, there, she's still connecting to audio. Okay. Hi there, Kim. Welcome. I lost you there.
Hi, thank you.
Welcome. It's wonderful to have you with us. We were just getting started by giving a little bit of an overview about our community's history of visits to Israel and a little bit about Mejdi. I told our group here that you would be joining us. I have the itinerary, the version 2 that you and I have been in touch about, ready to screen share, and I was planning to just roll us right through that. But I would very much like for you to walk us through it, or feel free to fill in. You'll have much more specific information on some of the sites that we would like to visit.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all.
So what I'd like to do is go ahead and screen share the itinerary right now. It's going to be a lot of information to take in all at once. We will definitely have time for Q&A today and also going forward, but let's go ahead and start with that. Pull it up. Oh, thank you. Hang on just a second. Can everyone see this? Just somebody give me a thumbs up that you can see it. Okay, I think that's a yes. Now what happens if I do that? Hang on just a sec. Okay, hopefully that's legible. So to start with, you can see the dates that we're looking at, which I hope you already know because we did share that in our communication before. We're planning on traveling from April 1st through 10th or thereabout. That means flying over on March 31st and flying out either on the afternoon of April 10th or maybe even April 11th. We'll see about that. So it's 9 nights, 10 days in Israel. And Kim, I was going to skip over this part here right now and go right down.
No problem. Once we have a registration page, then all of this information will be up, and everyone will be able to see, what's included exactly in the trip.
Great. So I want to make sure everybody understands clearly that the price for the trip that's being quoted here does not include airfare. So airfare, you have to factor that in as an additional cost. I can tell you that my husband Jonathan and I have been looking at airfare for a related reason, which I'll explain later. And we found flights for $1,000 each, just to give you a ballpark idea if you're not familiar with what flights to Israel cost. I'm sure that they can be found for much less than that. And of course, if you want to spend more, you can. But we'll have more to say about that. But just so you understand, that's not factored into the the tour price. We are going to follow Mejdi's requirement that we all have health and travel insurance. If you want to have a room, it's all based on double occupancy. If you want to have a room of your own and not share, there's an additional cost per person. There are many meals that are included in the trip, but there are some that are not. So you certainly come with the understanding that you'll be spending a little bit on food for yourself. Okay, and then you can see here the tour pricing. Okay. And you can see that it's a little bit variable depending on how many people travel. So if it's a higher number of people traveling, it's a somewhat lower price per person. Okay, and we'll make this document available for you to look at and absorb more fully at your own pace. But I'd like to go ahead now and move us over to the actual experience. And Kim, if I could turn it over to you here.
Sure.
To start us.
Sure. And I will just say that the insurance right now is something that is required by the Israeli ministry, health ministry. Of course, everything is changing almost weekly, I would say, about the requirements to enter Israel.
Yeah.
But that's something that we'll advise and help you run through. Same thing with insurance. We have recommendations and can help you with that. Okay. So about the trip. We try to keep it very diverse so that you can receive a very good taste of what Israel and Palestine are all about, which means meeting the various communities that live here, and not necessarily ones that you're expecting to meet. So I'll just run through everything and feel free to ask questions. On the first day when you arrive, the first activity that we're planning for you is the Anu Museum, which is actually a new name for the Diaspora Museum. And they've completely renovated the place. It's beautiful, and it's full of videos and actually interactive things to see along the museum that basically tells you the Jewish story all over the world, and not just the one in Israel. And it's good to get that as a first experience when you land, because it kind of shows you that variety that we're going to talk about throughout the trip. And then you'll have Shabbat services with local communities and enjoy Shabbat dinner together as a group. Should I just run through or wait for questions, or?
Let's keep going through for now. Folks, if you would hold on to your questions, or if you want to put them in the chat, you can, and we can, review them as when we're done with reviewing the itinerary. Yeah. I just want to add, sorry, one more person coming in through the waiting room here. I just want to add that for Shabbat, there are a number of just delicious possibilities that I'm looking forward to refining with Kim and with all of you in Tel Aviv and in Jerusalem, because we'll have a Shabbat in each place on this itinerary. So just to tuck that away now.
Yeah, this itinerary is very initial. I think that we will probably still be making changes closer to the trip. Yeah. So the Shabbat itself is pretty calm and I would say a little bit laid back. We'll have the morning free to either visit synagogues or rest. And after lunch, we'll tour Jaffa. System Ali are a multi-ethnic hip-hop group. They basically formed to give us some sort of solution to youth that was on the streets. And they started doing it through rap music in various languages: Russian, Arabic, English, Hebrew, Amharic, and more. And if anyone's interested on hearing more about them, I don't know if you talked about this, Rachel, but Aziz, one of the co-founders, and I had a year-long live stream, and you can find it on the Majdi website. All of the episodes are recorded and were uploaded. So there was one specific episode that we had with them. They did a bit of rap, and it's a fresh way to look at the city and to understand the complexities there. After that, you'll have a Havdalah ceremony together as a group and a processing session talking about the rest of the itinerary for the week.
Great. Okay, and you can see here there are some options that we're playing with right now, exploring, looking at the refugee, asylum seeker, and work immigrant situations, and or getting together with one of the leaders of Bina, which is an incredible modern yeshiva. Some of you may remember that we've had visitors from Bina here in our community to share with us what they're doing and to teach us in the unique way that they approach Jewish text. And also Majdi is offering us here an opportunity to hear from leaders of Asaf. As you can see, the aid organization for asylum seekers and refugees in Israel, which has become a very important and central issue. Okay, Kim, back to you, day 3.
Okay, so day 3, we're starting to make our way up north. So we'll start with Tel Aviv because we didn't have enough time to see the city. So seeing the Trail of Independence, discussing the Startup Nation, walking through Rothschild, and of course visiting the Shuk. And from there, you'll start driving north along the sea. Caesarea is a Roman ruin site, very interesting, and a lot to learn there. And I think it's a nice way also to open the trip and kind of see the beauty of the country. From there, you'll continue to the Haifa area. The Muhaka Monastery is a small monastery with an amazing view. And it's, again, will enable your guide to discuss another minority in Israel. You'll visit a local winery, which this winery specifically is located in a small village that most of it, or if not all, is built of a disabled community, and they give them work, and it's a very interesting visit. I think that you're showing 2 pages on one, so yeah, there you go.
I just want to get to the next part of here.
Yeah, so there you go.
Okay. That's visible.
So that's day, very versatile and interesting. And you're staying in Haifa. The next day, you're continuing on the coast and talking about borders and spirituality. So you'll visit the Baha'i Gardens and talk about Haifa as a multicultural city, and then continue to another mixed city, which is Akko, tour the city's port, talk about the history of the city and what's going on today. This is a very interesting city that was, I guess, big on the last violent outbreak that happened here in the summer.
Yes.
And from there, you'll continue to the northern border, where you can see some artwork that has been done on the separation wall there, and then go to Safed or Tzfat. And we wrote stopping along the way for some Druze delights. It's a good way to hear about another minority and community. And in Tzfat, discuss Kabbalah or have some sort of interactive activity. Okay, the next day is all about Galilee and the Golan Heights. So from Safed, you'll have some time in the morning in the city as well, and then you'll go visit another community, which is the Cherkess community, learn about their culture, how they got to this land, eat some of their food, and continue to the Golan Heights, this time talking about another border, which is the one with Israel and Syria. From the Mount Mental, there's a very beautiful overview. And from there, you'll continue to the Sea of Galilee and Tiberias in that area to discuss the different faiths and the history of that area.
Oh, sorry. It just jumped too fast for me.
That's okay.
There, day number 6. And there's some things I would like to add in, folks. Just a few personal notes, but I really want to let Kim continue through. Her time is limited, and I know ours is as well for today. So let's go ahead with day 6.
Thank you. So day 6, you're starting to make your way down to Jerusalem. And, we went up on one side of the country, and now we're going down on the other, right next to the West Bank in the Jordan Valley. You're driving down south, you'll visit a kibbutz near the Dead Sea. It also has a beach, that kibbutz, so you can have time to float and enjoy the Dead Sea. And from there, you'll continue to Bethlehem. You'll meet a local representative from an NGO. You'll visit the Church of the Nativity, Manger Square, and of course, follow the separation wall, seeing the graffiti, discussing the politics in the area. And the night you'll be spending in Jerusalem. So that's kind of the longest day in terms of driving, but you'll have a lot of stops along the way, so it won't necessarily feel that way. And when you're arriving to Jerusalem, the opening day of Jerusalem is going to be with 2 guides, one Israeli, one Palestinian in tandem, and they will guide you through the old city, through the Christian, the Muslim, and the Jewish sites. The dialogue between them, I think, will be most interesting. They will tell you about local life there, and at the same time, they'll discuss history, religion, and politics, how those all come together within this old city of Jerusalem, beautiful old city of Jerusalem. So you'll visit all of the main sites, and in the evening, you'll meet 2 people from the Parents Circle. This is an organization that works with bereaved families. So I think this whole day is kind of going to give you a dual narrative perspective about Israel, Palestine, the conflict, religion, etc. And in the evening, to kind of ease the day, you'll have a traditional home-cooked meal with the Palestinian family. Usually we have this at our co-founder's family's house. There's music, very good food, and a very local experience. And then the next day, before we go into Shabbat, you'll be visiting Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Memorial Museum, Mount Herzl, talking about the IDF, different wars that Israel went through, and kind of about the future as well. And then you'll have lunch at the Shuk, Machne Yehuda, before visiting. Well, this can be, I guess, a choice, either visiting another spot in Jerusalem or taking the afternoon free. And then you'll split into small groups for Shabbat dinner with local families. You'll be hosted by local families. And then the Shabbat, again, kind of similar to Tel Aviv, but this is Jerusalem. So I think in terms of the feeling of Shabbat, it's completely different. And that'll be a nice experience to have, to begin the trip with Shabbat in Tel Aviv, and then end the trip with Shabbat in Jerusalem, and compare the experiences. So you'll visit local synagogues and have some time, again, free. And after lunch, you'll visit your Jewish guide will take you for a short walking tour. And in the evening, you'll have a Havdalah and sort of a closing session before a farewell dinner with the group.
And then, great, thank you, Kim. Just want to show here, depending on our travel our actual flights in and out. I'm really hoping we can include this last part here at the top. If you see where it says to visit the village of Neve Shalom. Ugh, sorry. No, I'm looking here. This is what I want you to see.
Yeah.
The village of, go ahead, Kim, the village of Neve Shalom. I don't know.
Neve Shalom is a village of coexistence. It's a mixed community that decided to live together and create a movement out of it. So the discussion there when you visit, it's a lot about peace and hope and living together. So if the flights are in the evening on the next day and not morning flights, or even in the afternoon, then you'll have time on your way to the airport from Jerusalem to visit the village and get, I think, a hopeful message before leaving.
Yeah, which would be a wonderful way to end if we could. Okay, and then Kim, will you just walk us through this last part, the payment and cancellation policy? Sure. I love that you call it the Mejdi New Peace of Mind payment cancellation policy.
Well, I think that we used to collect payments much earlier for the trip, and that's why we changed it to New Peace of Mind. We now have the final payment 60 days out before the trip, which enables us to make a decision if it's actually probable to, or it's something you're able to do before you make that final payment. And the deposit is a $300 deposit. It's something that you pay once you register. So we'll soon have a website up that will have all of this information and let you sign up. And when you sign up, you're putting down this deposit, but making the final payment only in the end of January. The reason that we're now using credits more than refunds is because right now, I mean, we're doing our best to collect the payments as late as possible, and that's when we start paying our vendors as well. And it's easier to get credits from them rather than receive a refund, and that's how things have changed accordingly. I do want to make it clear that, we signed this contract and we have this in black and white. Mejdi really does its best to stay flexible and very transparent. And if for any reason you don't feel comfortable, making the payments at 60 days because of the local situation, we do our best to push the vendors and to try to push the dates and be more flexible. So if this is intimidating anyone, keep that in mind as well. And once you do sign up, we have two things that are available for you. One will be a portal that you can use and see all of the information that we have up for you, which is going to be a reading list and a packing list and almost anything you need, advice for buying the flight and insurance and etc. And we have great traveler service that is also available on the phone and can help you through any of your questions.
Thank you so much, Kim.